Hello and namaste everyone. Welcome back to the To Be Free series of episodes that I've been presenting. And today we are going to talk about one of the very important aspects of our lives, which is harmony in relationships. We of course have spoken a bit about health and happiness in the past episodes, and now we are touching on another very important aspect of our existence, which happens to be relationships. And of course we want all those relationships to be harmonious. So how do we build harmonious relationships? Definitely a priceless or timeless question that humanity has been seeking for, because we are all of course social creatures. We all want to have relationships. We come into this world with that amazing relationship with our mother, with the most harmonious relationship, I would say, to begin with. And as we grow, we build various relationships. But of course, we know the plight of every human being in this world and the challenges we all go through in many relationships that we build. Of course, today we are going to be focusing specifically about the relationship between two adults, two partners, right? In a marriage especially. Or we can even take a committed relationship between two people. And that is going to be the focus of this discussion. So we come into this world with that, of course, nice relationship with the mother. And as we grow up, the mother obviously helps us build relationship with the family. And then after a few years, we start to get into relationship with friends, and then your schoolmates, and then as you graduate, you get into the world, you start to make friends, you build those relationships. All those things seems to be like okay for a certain period of time, but where it gets really difficult and really challenging is when people continue that relationship for a certain period of time, when people start to coexist in a certain environment, whether it's under one roof living as partners in a marriage or a live-in relationship, obviously these days, or even working together or spending a lot of time in a specific job. And this is where relationships get very complicated. And I would like to share my own personal experience in terms of relationships and what challenges I had faced. My life obviously was very focused in the first 2 decades on education and getting a degree and graduating with a nice degree and get a job. And in general, we all tend to focus on what is called the IQ, the intellectual quotient. We all want to be smart, getting those best grades, getting into the best school, and then get a good job. And after that, of course, when we get into relationships, it's not the IQ that is going to play a key role. It is actually another thing called EQ, emotional quotient, or emotional intelligence, plays a very key role as we get into relationships. And unfortunately, most of us aren't trained for that. We're all trained to build like a sharp intellect, very brilliant brains, and highly intellectual minds, but never the attention has been on how to develop that emotional intelligence and emotional quotient. And that is where we see a lot of challenges in the world today, in relationships, because we've never been trained. Now, very similar to that, obviously, I've gotten into relationships and I've seen many challenges in relationships about, understanding people or why others behave a certain way and why there isn't compatibility. And all of these have really bothered me and troubled me for a certain while, until I met ancient sage Sunita Amma, and I started to get into the practice of this amazingly healing meditation form called Sukshma healing meditation. And obviously, in my first meeting with Sunita Amma, she talked about the challenges that I currently have, and I was talking about relationships and how I have been in a certain state of turmoil or worry about different relationships in my life. And at the end of it all, she simply asked me one question. She said, "Suman, do you have a proper relationship with yourself? Have you ever taken time to work on yourself?" And I was just blown away with that question, in a way actually shocked, because I thought the problem was always on the other side. Oh, there's a problem on that person, maybe there's a problem in this person. But I've never said, maybe there is a need for me to work on myself. And that was a major turning point in my life. And that really took me off in an amazing path to build a relationship with myself first. That one sentence might seem very simple, to build a relationship with the self, but I tell you, my dear friends, it's the most amazing, most powerful thing you can ever do in this world, in this lifetime, building that relationship with yourself. Now, why do we need to build relationship with ourselves for actually building harmonious relationship with others? Now, if you look at any relationship, like any person that we meet, the first step that happens in that connectivity is the physical connection. We look at that person physically, and there is something that happens. Obviously, people call it chemistry, whatever you want to call it, chemistry, biology, or physics. I'll leave it to you. But there is that first connection at a physical level. And now with that physical connection, which we get drawn to, we start a conversation. Now, where does a conversation happen? The conversation happens at a mental level, at an intellectual level. Now, as we start to begin that conversation and make that relationship, you start to see there are certain ideas and ideologies that we have common with, and then we kind of move forward and say, oh yeah, this person has similar ideology, this person has similar way of looking at life, and we start to feel that this person is right for me to lead a life with, build a partnership with, build a marriage, a family with. And based on those two things, and maybe we sometimes also tend to look at the third one, which is the emotional connection. Some people look for it, some people don't look for it. But I do know that these are the three important ingredients with which we go forward in a relationship, when we have a physical connectivity, a mental connectivity, and an emotional connectivity. And then we get into a long-term relationship. Now, the problem is that when people start their life with the foundation built on these three things, it gets a little bit rough later. Because once you're under that one roof, you start to see the person even more closely in terms of their habits, in terms of how they react and respond to situations. And all of this is happening at a physical, mental, and emotional level. And not only that this physical and mental, emotional traits of a person keeps changing over a period of time. They're not the same person. Like physically, of course, I'm going to go get old. We are all growing every single day. Cells are dying, new cells are born. So we are getting older every day. So the body changes. And then there is your thought process, which also keeps changing. I was not, the same person who I was when I was 10 compared to 20. I'm not the same person today who I was at 20, because my thought process, my mental capability to process information and analyze it and digest it and make inferences out of it and build perspectives has changed over a period of time because of a lot of influences. Now, which means that when two people come together, they are definitely not going to be the same people over a period of time, because that's going to keep changing. And same with emotional connection as well. So unfortunately, if you look at how we build relationships is on something which is not permanent, which is constantly changing. And we try to live in a relationship trying to build the relationship around this foundation, which in fact is illusion, because this foundation actually never exists. This foundation is just illusionary. It keeps changing as we keep growing in life. Now, this is where the problems start, and where people start getting to, fights and, disagreements and compatibility issues, and then obviously leads to a lot of disaster. Now, what happens in this disaster? Some people obviously go for, counseling and therapy and marriage therapy and all that, which is great. I don't have any problem with that. But there is one aspect that I want all of us to be aware. Most of these counselings and therapies are at an intellectual level. People are just talking it out. It helps to one level, like when you talk it out to somebody. But then most of the fixes for these problems are at an intellectual level. Or you try to change your thought process this way or that way. Nobody is taking time to go inside, deep inside. And that is where I found Sukshma meditation, ancient Sunita Amma's way of dealing with these situations, because I've seen many people who had a lot of challenges in their relationships come to her and heal and then actually make their lives better. Because in Sukshma, we are not just touching the surface at an intellectual level, but we are actually going deeper inside. Now, what is there inside? Inside, we know we have amazing treasure, but we also have a lot of filth. Filth in form of all these vices of jealousy, ego, pride, greed, delusion, anger, greed, jealousy, all these things are there within. And 99% of the relationships fail because one of these ingredients become more, and then that ingredients obviously changes the taste of the relationship, because the spice levels of those 6 ingredients which we talked about, 6 enemies, 6 vices, go out of balance, and then it starts to create disharmony in relationships. So the real work for building a harmonious relationship is in cleaning those vices and getting rid of those vices. And once you get rid of those vices, you will be able to see the world as it is. Because until now, until the cleansing happened, you are looking through the lens of the dust that accumulated, the lens of conditioning that has created, what was created by these subconscious vices sitting inside. So the real transformation can happen only when that cleaning happens, and only when that real transformation happens in you, then the other person observes that. So the first step is self-awareness, knowing about yourself, self-regulation, which means cleaning all those inner vices. Once these 2 things happen, something miraculous happens. You become an inspiration for others. Others start to see that shift in you. Others start to notice that Suman used to be this, now Suman is now this. He's a transformed person. And that's the only way you can trigger change in other person. Unfortunately, what we do in the world today is we want others to change. We want that person to change. And this person says, you have to change. So you change, you change, you change, you change. You keep pointing fingers back and forth. And what ends up is being a huge mess. And it becomes very entangled, it becomes very dirty, it becomes very clumsy, it becomes very frustrating, and in that entanglement, suffocation starts and people don't enjoy the relationship anymore. So when you start to shift the focus onto you, you start to work on yourself. And I've seen this in my own personal life, my dear friends, and I've experimented with this. And Sunita Amma actually helped me travel this journey in an amazing, literally she handheld me and helped me go through this journey in a beautiful way. And there were times when I used to question and say, why should I change? But every single time she used to come to me and say, Suman, I think you can grow a little bit better, evolve a little bit more better, a little bit more, a little bit more. And every single time when I ran into that blockage, when I ran into that hurdle, I was actually able to cross that because I worked on myself. You know, a lot of times people think that by preaching, you can change other person. By teaching, you can change other person. No, the only way you can change others is you becoming an inspiration, you becoming the change that you want to see in others. And then once that happens, that inspiration becomes contagious and the others would want to change. And that's when they will come to you, they will reach out to you and say, you know, Suman, or whoever you are, I need some help to change. And that's where you become a support system for others to change. So this requires a lot of patience, a lot of perseverance, forgiveness of the self, forgiveness of others, acceptance of you and acceptance of others. Now, these are all known formulas. Like you talk to any relationship expert, they will use these standard words: forgiveness, acceptance, patience, perseverance, empathy, compassion, Great, easy to talk. But how do we implement those? You can implement those only when you experience those, when you become patient with yourself, when you forgive yourself, when you first accept yourself. Now, there is a drawback here. When you say accept yourself, a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to be the way I am. I accept myself. I am rude. I am crazy. I'm going to be like this. I have anger issues. I have this. I have that. I'm going to stay like this. No, 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 no. That is not acceptance. Acceptance is accept for this moment how you are. Don't fight with yourself, but work on yourself. Very important to know this difference. There is a huge problem in the world today. People think, oh, I am the way I am, so I'm going to just live like this. There is something called a righteous way of living, which is ancient wisdom calls dharmic way. There are certain standards that were set, the qualities of life, the values, morals and ethics which dictate us to live life in a certain way. Those are not like hard, fast rules, but the ways with which you can make your life beautiful and you can make others' life beautiful as well. So acceptance is to accept the way you are right now, forgiving yourself for all the mistakes that you may have done, and then start from there. Make that as a starting point and work on yourself. Inventory, make an inventory of what is there inside. What is the good, what is the bad, what are your strengths, what your weakness, and then work. Again, this work is not that easy. I know that. You need someone to help you with that, and that someone has to be able to work deeply inside, not at a superficial fluff, not just talking at a higher intellectual level and having like a set of formulas to work with. No formulas, no intellectual analysis will work here, because ultimately when you touch your true self, when you experience your true self, when you experience the pure love within, then you can give that pure love to others. Then you can show compassion to others. So first step is to be able to understand. Now for that self-love, to be able to experience that love, self-love is very important. Now self-love also is not that easy. I know that, because when we do these workshops with Sunita Amma, I see a lot of people struggle to do self-love, because there are so much baggage, so many barriers, so many hurdles inside. Now this is where this ancient yogic wisdom becomes very powerful. The whole ancient yogic wisdom is all about working on the self, working layer by layer by layer, physical, mental, emotional, and finally touching that soul, touching the true self. Only realizing the true self can make relationships better. Until and unless people catch the true self, which is nothing but an embodiment of love, we cannot build harmonious relationships. So, my dear friends, the solution for building harmonious relationships is to get to that subtlest of the subtle, purest of the pure, inner, divine, pure self, or that soul, or the spirit, or Atma. When you experience that, when you make a relationship built on that foundation, then it doesn't matter, because physical will fade away after a few years. Beauty will fade off, external beauty, right? Intellectual changes, emotions change, we become more quieter, silent, but yet there is that strong connectivity between two people, because they know who they are. They know that the connection is not at all these superficial levels, but deep inside at the soul level. Now, the beauty of this is this love and compassion that builds inside now can be expanded not just to one person. You can use it for greater goodness of humanity. Now, this is where your relationships start to expand in a beautiful way. You start to see the world as one, and you start to build that harmonious relationship with everyone. Again, the essence of yoga is that oneness. That oneness first has to start with yourself, with your immediate surroundings, with your family, with your friends, and then of course for the entire humanity. So, my journey, I've learned that the only way to build harmonious relationships is working on the self, inner silence, inner shifts, inner transformation, experiencing that pure love. And it involves certain practices, daily practices. It involves cleansing, using ancient sages like Sunita Amma who can penetrate through our consciousness and clean that subconscious hurdles. I've seen so many people who come to Sunita Amma who say, oh, I don't like that person, I don't like this person, oh, I have had enough with that person. And after a few sessions, they will say, Amma, I have forgiven that person. It's okay, I am fine with this person. Because where did Sunita Amma go and change that other person? No. She changed the person who came to her for these sessions. Because in that session, what changed is that person, that inside person has shifted. It's almost like somebody comes and cleans off all this dust. And then you start to see yourself, your pure self. And when you start to see your pure self, you start to fall in love with that person. Not the other person. You actually start to fall in love with yourself. I used to fall in love with myself. I'm like, wow, Suman, you are such a beautiful soul. You are such an amazing human being. And this is the case with every person. Every person is a beautiful, amazing human being. But unfortunately, we are covering us with all these clutters and layers, and we keep judging ourselves and we keep judging others. In this judgment of the self and others constantly, we create a chaos. So, Sukshma is the solution, subtlest of the subtle self. You have to catch with it. You have to spend time with your subtlest of the subtle self every day. You have to nurture this inner self every day. You have to spend time for self-care, self-love, self-compassion, self-purification, self-realization. Self-realization is not a spiritual journey, my dear friends. It is not becoming some monk or something else. It is about being with you, being with your own self, knowing your own self, elevating your own self. And in that journey, you will start to spread the fragrance of harmony with yourself first. And once you enjoy that fragrance of yourself, then that fragrance spreads to every human being. Okay, so let's do a short practice. We've done this in the past, right? Some simple self-compassion, self-love exercises. Simple exercises like smile, smiling for yourself. Start with simple smile. I know it's hard for many people who are going through relationship dramas, relationship traumas. These dramas and traumas are not permanent. Believe me. Your true self is permanent. So catch that true self. And the simplest way, start simple smiles for yourself. Pay attention to your breath. Past is gone. Future you don't know. But present is empty. Present is like your cement and mortar with which you build your home. That's present. It's like empty space. You can build anything you want in that empty space. In that empty space, you can build a beautiful home, inner home. Why are we struggling? Is because we're focusing on what happened in the past. Past is dead. Yes, I understand. People say, oh, I have so much of trauma. Yes, I understand. It happened. But it's past. It's gone. It's dead. Let's not dig the grave again. Because when you dig the grave, it stinks. You don't want to dig the grave. Be in the present, my dears. See what you can do now. Now. Just even taking a few minutes to pay attention to your breath and your smile. Give some simple self-compassion, tapping if you want. You can release all those traumas. Simple tapping. Tap, 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 tap. Simple tapping. Chop, 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 chop. Punch, punch, punch. Chop, chop, chop. Punch, punch, punch. Rub, rub, rub. Just become aware of your physical body first. Press your forehead to release any traumas, any chaos. Press your sides like this. Release that stress from your brain. Back of your head. Release. Subconscious release. Release that tension from your jaws. Give this time every day for a few minutes. And then give that nice hug for yourself. Practice this 2 times, 3 times a day. Even more if you're going through a lot of pain and trauma. Just small step, my dear friends. Small steps. Be honest with yourself. Forget about that other person for now. Come to you. You are the most precious resource. Work on you. Ignore others. Be in silent. Be in silence. And being silent helps you to see yourself, helps others also to see themselves. Now just take your name and say this promise. I'll take my name and you take your name and do this promise, please. Suman, I love you. I respect you. I honor you. No matter what, I'll never let you down. I'll take care of you physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. This is my promise to you, Suman. And now just repeat this promise in your heart. Let every cell in your body feel that promise. Let your heart fill with that smile and that promise, please. Enjoy that hug for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, however long you want. No one's going to stop you from this. Make yourself the highest priority. Yes, kids are important, your partner is important, work is important, but remember, none of those will exist if you don't exist. All of those exist because of your existence. So come back to you. You. In the now. In the now. In the now. be there for however long you want to. Stay there. Your breath, your smile, and your hug. With your affirmation, you will see, do this every single day, my dear friends. Twice or thrice